Hi there, it's Sarah from Ruffles and Rainboots, and today we're making a SHADOWBOX gnome. If you'd like to make this cutie and his little home, stick around. As always, please give this video a like so I know you're here crafting with me. Now, if you've never made a SHADOWBOX before, I'm using rocks. You can use driftwood as a place for your gnome to sit, or any kind of bench, or any of those little fairy seats or mushrooms, but I chose to use some rocks that are really very colorful. And then what I'm doing is I'm just going to start placing various types of craft moss. So this is dried moss you get at the craft store. I do live in the Pacific Northwest, but I'm not pulling this off of trees because this is a SHADOWBOX we are going to close. Okay, so if you cannot create your own flower arrangements like me, I cannot make them to save my life. I will tell you, just start placing the flowers that you've cut really far down on the plastic stems. Just start placing them. I find that if you have the big flowers down at the bottom left or at the top left, it works really well because you can put the flowers sort of getting smaller towards the gnome, and then you're going to be tucking in things like vines and any kind of sprigs of anything in there. So I will tell you, use a lot of pins, and if your pins are too long for whatever SHADOWBOX, I'm using a 12 by 12 by 2 inch deep, just use some wire cutters or some scissors to make your pins a little less long, and then that way they'll fit everything in there. But again, I'm just using a lot of pins to secure these, and you're always going to want to stand up your SHADOWBOX to make sure that everything stays put, because this is designed to be sitting up, either hanging on a wall or up on a shelf. So after I've got the flowers arranged, I want to put a layer of moss because I do want my gnome to be on a single color. So that's really where the highlight of this is for me. Go figure, I'm the gnome lady. And speaking of gnomes, we are going to start making the most simple sock gnome. I'm using small socks, they're child socks, and we're just going to make a simple sock gnome by adding some rice or poly beads into a sock, tying off the top, snipping off the excess. Get as close as you can to that knot because we're going to use that. I don't waste any of these things, do I? So we're going to use that little piece there to make some arms and legs. First, we're going to secure this so that in case we want to use this guy again for something else, we have it. So here we are, we're going to make arms and legs for my gnome. You do not need to have arms and legs, but again, I wanted the little gnome to be holding a flower, and I wanted his little legs to be dangling off of the rocks. So all we're going to do is create 4 rectangle pieces of fabric from our scrap, and we're just going to, quote, hem it. We are not going to turn these inside out, so don't worry about that. We are going to clean up the ends that are going to be seen. So all we're going to do is just hem them and move on. Okay. I burn myself a lot. Can you tell? I should use those little hot glue finger guards, but I just never remember to put them on. I have 2 sets. If you're new to making gnomes, here's how you make a gnome beard. You measure how long and how wide you want the fur, and then you cut only the back with a razor blade. All right, so you're going to put that aside and now make a hat. We're going to use the brim as the brim of the hat. We're going to use the bottom rib that goes on the ankle, so we're going to cut this into a triangle. And all we're doing is cutting off the heel of the foot and the toe of the foot. And again, we're making a hat. Now we're going to be cheating here, so we're just gonna, you can put this on the sewing machine and do it all fancy, but I like a hot glue gun. I feel I don't burn myself enough after just having said that. So we're just going to hem it with hot glue, and if you've been on my channel before, you know I do this a lot, and it stays. I use Gorilla Glue. I'll put the link down to all the supplies that I love and that actually have proven themselves through all my hundreds of gnomes. So we're just going to make this seam, and then once we get these 2 pieces attached, we let that sit for a second, which through the magic of video I don't show you, but we do want to let that sit so that the glue adheres and get all the way through, because we are going to be stuffing this with polyfill. Now once it has dried, you're going to use a pencil or chopstick to poke out the very tip, being very careful, and then you're going to bend over the edge of some floral wire, cut it off, and then secure that at the base of the hat. And that's going to allow us to bend that hat any which way we want. And we're just going to stuff it with some polyfill. And my favorite thing is to roll it in between my hands to sort of distribute it. And you can always add more, you can always take it out, but just make sure you're not stuffing the hat too full that it expands those seams, because we did just use hot glue. You're not giving this to a 3-year-old, right? This is going to be up high, so we're not having to secure it with a sewing machine. Okay, so now just attach that right below the knot, the beard right below the knot, or the braids, whatever you're using. And then what we're going to do is pull that hat really far down and just tack it. So we're going to tack it along the 2 sides of the hat so that we can best position our nose and anything else we'd like. Okay, so first things first, lift up the brim of the hat. Make sure your beard is sort of like, you know, brushed down, and then add the gnome nose. And then right after that has been secured, I know, don't make fun of me, I'm brushing his beard. Anyway, after that glue is secured, we're going to actually put the top of the hat right down onto that nose so it stays. Okay, so now for the arms, you can see that we have 2 arms we've just made there. They don't have any wire in them. They just have one edge. You can see the edge. We're going to cover that edge with a hand in just a second. Now for the feet, all I'm doing is I'm going to put bendable wire. I glued one side together, stuck the wire up into the leg, and then repeated that for the second one. Okay? Really simple. I mean, this whole thing it's really not a long craft. All I'm going to do is glue those right to the gnome, making sure we don't get any hot glued in that beard. Next up, I'm just going to add a little one of the flowers that fell off when I was making the shadow box and put that on the very tippy top of his hat. And then I'm going to add 2 clay balls or wooden beads or buttons, whatever you want for the hands. Now, I did 2 types of shoes. I have little clay black balls for the shoes here, but I think it looks a little silly. So I rip them off and do this shoe. Here's my alternate shoe for this little guy. I just take a felt circle, stuff a little polyfill, and make it a circle, a pom-pom, if you will, of felt with a little hot glue, and then add that to the bottom of the leg. I think these look a little better because we do have some pretty profound rocks that he's sitting on, and it just looked a little silly. So next up, we're going to trap the gnome or position him, and then we're just going to, whatever you want him to hold, if you want him to hold something. I will say I ended up just using 1 flower, so you can snip these off with a pair of scissors or wire cutters, and then that way I can secure the flower in between the 2 hands and right below his nose where I want it. There you go. And you can pin him in place, or you can use the door of the shadow box to keep him in place. Now, if you have a Cricut and if you want to do this, I am using removable permanent vinyl here, or I'm sorry, removable vinyl here, just to put spring has sprung. And that's it. What do you think about this easy craft? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, thank you for being here. Please like and subscribe to Ruffles and Rain Boots for more crafty fun.